Now, I know that this subject has been thrashed to death a million times over. However, this is just my own personal opinion on why I believe is better. Let's start off by acknowledging that anywhere in the world, never mind Asia, where you can live for around a third of the cost that you can in your own home country, has got to be a winner from the outset. So whether it's the Philippines or Thailand or Vietnam or Malaysia or anywhere else in Asia, if a place gives you the affordability to live in a comfortable life at such a discount, it has to be a viable place for relocating or retiring or any other reason. Because without that key requirement being satisfied, it's just a no-go from the starter. It's also important to make sure that the distinctions between two places are based on finding a suitable place to live, whether that's for retirement or working or other reasons, and not on the basis of, well, I once went there on holiday for 2 or 3 weeks and it was amazing. I've lost count of the number of times that I was speaking to people in the months leading up to coming out to Asia. Or once they got past it, no, he's not going anywhere. Or you wait and see, he'll still be here a year from now. And they finally realized that you are doing what you say. Then they start to give you endless advice for a particular country because they once went there on a holiday. So you get oh, you're going to love Thailand or the Philippines or wherever. Oh, it's amazing. We had a fantastic time. When you ask them, so how long did you live there? They would reply, well, we didn't live there. We just went there on vacation 2 years ago. What they are in effect doing is searching the filing cabinet of their subconscious and pulls out a file that has an attachment to a particular place, to that amazing time that they had when they were there on holiday. And that's totally different experience from living here day after week after month after year in a normal routine of life. I did a video a few months ago, I think it was called Vacation Vibe, where I discussed all of this. They're basically both exotic lands in Asia with warmer climates and all of the characteristics that you would expect to go with that. It's not like one benefits from 32 degrees C and the other from 20 degrees C. So the experience will be quite similar at the end of the day. Anyway, let's get into this. Seeing as though I spent my first part of the year in the Philippines, I'll start there. Now, usually, when you go to another country, the first major issue that you encounter is communication. It's usually a language barrier. However, aside from the two main spoken native languages of Tagalog and Bisaya, amongst other dialects, English is spoken just as freely as it's one of their main official languages. This alone is a massive selling point because you will rarely get a Filipino that doesn't have at least some grasp of basic English. Most are fluent with a slight American accent, which actually makes it quite cute in a friendly way. If you are looking to make a connection with a girl, for example, it makes it so much easier to spontaneously ask for their number or just strike a conversation with them. Not to mention when dealing, for example, with the authorities or immigration. Or something as simple as walking into a shop and asking for a particular product or advice on something, making it altogether a much more smoother experience. Now contrast that with Thailand, and it's almost the complete opposite. From buying things online to dealing with real people, the arduous task of trying to get your point across starts to take its toll after a while. On one occasion, when I was in a condo, I was attempting to crisp a spring roll in the microwave that had a grilling element, only to end up blowing the entire circuit, leaving me without any electricity. So when the electricians turned up, it was a mixture of sign language and reading each other's phone translation. Now, whilst we got there in the end, it was far from being ideal. Sure, the restaurants and bars usually try to employ people that do speak basic English. But without a doubt, it creates a kind of barrier, which leads me to my next point, which is the people. In the Philippines, the people are so much more curiously interested in interacting with foreigners, and because they have the language skill, more likely to start conversations or ask questions. If you seem friendly enough as a foreigner, they will approach you. This again helps put you at ease in a foreign land, in a totally different environment, and adds a sense of familiarity to the place where you're hearing your own native tongue spoken in most places. even between Filipinos themselves. It gives a sense of confidence, whereas in Thailand, although the people can be friendly, I get the sense that they're holding back due to the lack of language ability. Now, I'm not saying that that's their fault because it's on us to learn the language of the place that we're visiting, and it's something that I've attempted in both countries. And in fact, I still continue to learn Thai every day. Of the ability to communicate easily enables people to be more open with each other. That aside, I think it's in the Filipinos' culture not just to be more friendly, but to be happily friendly. So far, I have experienced the Thai people on average to be quite respectful, but somewhat aloof, but I'll put this down to their lack of ability to communicate. After all, it's daunting to have to initiate conversation with a foreigner, especially if you don't have the language skill. In the first place, in terms of the culture, Thailand is known for its emphasis on social harmony, respect for authority, and a generally calm demeanor, while the Philippines displays a more outgoing, Western-influenced personality with a strong emphasis on family and community. Thai culture places great importance on maintaining harmony and avoiding conflict. They value respect for elders and authoritative figures. I often strive for a state of jayen, which is cool heart, and may not express extreme emotions publicly. While Thai people are known for politeness, they may also be more reserved than Filipinos in their interactions. Buddhism is a dominant religion in Thailand, influencing values like compassion and non-violence and self-control. Filipinos, however, are often seen as more open and playful with a strong sense of humor. The Philippines has a long history of Western influence, particularly from Spain and the United States, which has shaped its culture without a doubt. Family is central to Filipino society, with close relationships and multi-generational living arrangements are common. From my own interactions with the Philippine people, I can vouch 100% for this. I could be walking into Metro supermarket, and as I pass by the security guard, I would usually be greeted by a fist bump and a quick exchange of pleasantries of some kind, before he would continue bursting into song, usually something along the lines of Celine Dion, with a voice that qualifies for a recording contract, as other people just walk past like it's an everyday occurrence, which it actually is. Not like in the West, where it simply wouldn't happen for embarrassment or fear of being subjected to disapproval. Even the staff stocking shelves would casually openly compete for airspace with their vocal offerings of classic love songs from the 80s, with no shame whatsoever. I've got to tell you that it made a great atmosphere. It's so refreshing to see people just naturally expressing themselves in this way, without fear of being ridiculed. But that's the Philippine people for you, and it's something that I do miss very much. If I was to stop and ask somebody for directions or anything else, they would be only too pleased to interact with me and try to help. They almost took pride in being helpful. As a developing nation, their struggles are certainly real, but they meet this head-on with the resilience and sheer exuberance of energy. A typhoon could wipe out their house and they just start rebuilding it the very next day without complaining. No feel sorry for themselves, just getting on with it. Now, whilst I haven't experienced the same kind of openness in Thai people, they too are also very helpful. The security guards to the entry and exits of the condo residents that I'm at are usually very helpful if they see me approaching with two hands filled with bags or shopping of some kind. They'll lift the barrier for me and usher me through, instead of having to find my key card and go through the side gate. It's little gestures like this that you really learn to appreciate, because it makes you just feel that you're a little bit more integrated and you can call it home. Back in the UK or the West in general, it's a case of fend for yourself, if you know what I mean. They'll just sit there and look at you like, what do you expect me to do? Something that has really surprised me, though, in both countries is the younger generation. On the whole, they seem to be so much more respectful to older people, especially senior citizens. My interactions with both has been very pleasing, even refreshing. A far cry from the gangs of youths that hang around on street corners, drinking cheap alcohol, being unnecessarily abusive, creating an atmosphere of tension that you could cut with a knife in the West. Now moving on to infrastructure, Thailand obviously is generally outperforming the Philippines here. Thailand boasts a more extensive and well-developed road network. Thailand also has a well-established digital infrastructure. Both have major cities that could easily rival the West. In Cebu alone, there are at least half a dozen enormous shopping malls boasting all the major brands to satisfy your needs. Shopping there, or at least pretending to shop, is a national pastime. The same for hospitals and state-of-the-art facilities in major cities of both countries. It's just that there are more places that are further developed in Thailand. Thailand's transportation system is generally more developed and interconnected than the Philippines, particularly in terms of rail and domestic flights, and has a well-established bus and train network that makes it easier to travel between cities and even to many remote areas. The Philippines, on the other hand, relies heavily on buses for regional travel, which can be less comfortable and reliable. I only went on a couple of buses in the Philippines, and the experience was fine. But I can imagine if you're traveling long distances, you're going to miss the comparable speed and comfort of a train. One of the most important comparable aspects is, of course, the all-important dating. Now, we all have our own personal preferences when it comes to the physical and emotional attributes of the fairer sex. However, from what I've experienced so far in both, without being too disrespectful to Thai women, I found in general Filipinos seem to be more aesthetically pleasing, and to be perfectly honest with you, they just sound better. They seem to have a more softer look mixed together with a more fiery, passionate bedroom manner, and now combine that with a more sexier English American accent, and for me it's a clear win. Now overlay that with their cultural acceptance for age gap relationships, making it an aphrodisiac for most men. The truth is that Thai women have become increasingly focused on the financials in terms of how much they can get and for how long. They're not just looking for a partner that can provide, they're looking for a gravy train. And as a result of many conversations that I've had with other expats, there seems to be a consensus that it's a much more of a pay-for-play situation in Thailand. Relationships here seem to be increasingly hinged on a transactional value of some kind. As if it isn't hard enough to try and find a good girl with sincere intentions, this makes the task even more arduous. Granted, you will likely encounter just as many gold diggers and scammers in both countries. I'm just saying that here there seems to be a more intense focus on the financials, almost to the point where it's openly accepted on both sides here in Thailand. I guess that at the end of the day, it's down to what suits both parties. There's no right and no wrong, just what works for you. Now talking about accommodation, which for me is one of the most important aspects because it's where you spend most of your time. So I'm just going to come right out and say it. Thailand obliterates the Philippines when it comes to what you get for your money. When I was in Cebu, the Philippines, I remember going to the top of my condo residence, 30 floors up, and as I'm looking across the city skyline, I see no fewer than 27 cranes. There's an awful lot of money now flowing into the likes of Manila and Cebu, especially Cebu as it's the central hub, but it's expanding upwards and not outwards. The buildings are indeed getting taller and more modern, and I can see a situation where in 10 to 15 years' time, they will be where Thailand is now. In places like Bangkok, Chiang Mai and Pattaya, between $400 and $600 gets you luxury with first-class amenities, gyms, pools, all of it. Contemporary furnished rooms with atmospheric lighting, fixed hobs, washing machines are standard. And most will have balconies, whereas in the Philippines, balcony money is considered to be top tier. The cooking hobs are seldom fixed, and even more rare is a washing machine. They are like little rabbit hutches, whereas in Thailand, at that level, most will have a separate bedroom. Overall, you just get much more for your money in Thailand, but it depends on how important these things are to you. In Thailand, when they build it good. Now, it's common knowledge that when it comes to food, Thailand is in a league of its own for its own authentic Thai cuisine. Now, it's common knowledge that when it comes to food, Thailand is in a league of its own for authentic Thai cuisine. I personally haven't had that much of it, but what I have had was top-notch. Here, they're very good at recognizing what sells, and what sells is catering to a Western palate. But I find in general, the food to be clean, crisp, flavored, and healthy. Unfortunately, in the Philippines, everything was either drowned in grease or unhealthily and unnecessarily fatty. It's almost like they came up with dishes from previous generations and just never bothered to improve them. There seems to be little consideration to what makes a healthy dish. You can have pancit, a popular noodle dish, which most of the time, unfortunately, is ruined by being drenched in grease and oil. Chicken adobe is another nice dish that I like, sweet and sour chicken, which is a great dish, but again, often ruined with too much grease and oil. I think this is mainly due to the fact that they're having to make a little go a long way, and on occasions, ingredients might be in short supply. Now, every country has their traditional dishes or things that they're used to. In the Philippines, they will literally eat every part of the animal, the intestines, the claws, the fish eyes and head, everything. I remember having my favorite dish in Cebu, which was monster ribs in a barbecue sauce. And I would pick at the meat on the bones with the precision of a surgeon, and then hand the greasy fatty bits to the Filipina I was with, who would then proceed to devour it like she was a starved animal whilst declaring it was yummy. Each to their own, I guess. It's what you've been brought up with. Overall, in the Philippines, there was only one gripe, one annoyance that I have. This is when I go to a supermarket, for example, one of the main ones, let's say Metro, and you can join the queue. Let's say you've been waiting for about 10 minutes, it's busy, and they have a system where the cashier will pack your items for you in brown paper bags, or if there's more, in a cardboard box. It doesn't matter how many people are in the queue. They'll do it. Let's say that there are 10 registers and 5 of those are designated packers. This means if you're in one of the queues that has no packer, the girl on the till will do it all herself. Now, this means that it takes her extra time depending on whether you've got a basket full or a trolley. I remember being in one of those queues for around 10 minutes and the designated packer was called to another queue. In front of me was a couple early 20s with a full trolley, and I mean full. And as she was putting each item through the till, a big pile of goods was mounting at the other end. During which time, the young couple just stood there and made no attempt to pack anything whatsoever and just left it to the cashier. But before she could do that, she had to go across to the opposite side of the supermarket, find 1 or 2 suitable boxes. She then returned several minutes later with a couple of boxes that were flat packed, and then proceeded to unpack the boxes to make them usable, and then start the process of putting things inside the boxes. Again, during which time the young couple did nothing but just stand and watch, whilst everybody in the queue got more agitated. Finally, when she was finished, she then had to seal the boxes with string so that they were secure, so that they could be put into a trolley and taken to the car park. All of this had taken her around 12 to 15 minutes extra, which in my view is completely unacceptable. I think that this is the way they do it in the States, which is why they do it there, as opposed to the UK where we pack each item ourselves as soon as the girl has put them through the till, which speed things up significantly. I cannot for the life of me see how people think that it's an intelligent way of doing things. I can understand why they do this in 7-Elevens, because it's usually no more than half a dozen items, which takes no time at all. Nonetheless, the guy behind me was furious and made his feelings known, as we'd all been waiting in the queue now for around 25 minutes unnecessarily. It's important to know that this had no effect on the cashier, who views this as part of her job. Anyway, I digress. Other than that, it has problems with trash, so does Thailand, and most other Asian countries. On occasions, service can be substandard compared to Thailand, for example, in restaurants, and you do get an overall feeling that there's just no urgency whatsoever. And whilst all of this can be annoying, it's just the way it is. Finally, the visa situation is obviously important. Now, obviously, you're looking for your stay to be legitimate, and both have ways of making that possible. Now, I personally have a multiple entry retirement visa in Thailand, requiring little or no interaction with the authorities. Philippines has a more hands-on approach with their tourist visa, but this can be renewed online every 2 months up to 36 months. Now, if you want a more in-depth view about this, go and watch a video that I did about visa agents a few weeks ago, where I look at the process of both. So I'm not going to get into detail here, but just know that both have options that are viable and cost effective. Really, the bottom line here is that because of their affordability, they are both viable candidates for relocation or retiring. It really depends on where you choose to position yourself, whether it's in the expat bubble of niceness in the city, where all the amenities are, or in a more simple existence and a quieter pace of life in the province, even island life, especially in the Philippines. Overall, Thailand for me is far superior when it comes to the quality of accommodation and the amenities that come with it, which for me is important in terms of quality of fitness and recreational facilities. It also wins by having better infrastructure throughout the country in terms of motorways, transportation, etc. But very rarely do I use those anywhere. As for the Philippines, the main selling point for me is the wide use of English, the friendliness of the people, and the dating is probably the best in the world right now. Whilst there is no clear winner here, Thailand for me takes the edge for my own personal preferences, which are accommodation within my preferred setting of a sea view and the amenities available to me within that setting. In respective languages, I spend an hour a day learning Thai, which shows the locals that I'm making an effort and makes asking a girl on a day a little more romantic than using a translator. As I've said before, you have to make it what you want. It's really all about what you are personally looking for. I think the best thing to do is what I did, which is to give a trial period to both places. I would highly recommend spending some time in the Philippines first, because once you've conquered that, you can conquer anywhere in Asia. After all, this is not a competition between the two of them. Everybody's got an opinion and everybody's got their personal preferences. This is just food for thought, things to keep at the back of your mind while you're making your considerations. Why give one a chance and not the other? With the advent of Airbnb and other platforms, it makes it possible now and very straightforward to sample both of these wonderful places and anywhere else that's got your interest in Asia. Once you're in Asia, you can fly from one to the other in as little as 4 hours, just like I did, for less than $100. So you never know, you might be surprised at what each of them has to show you.